Hello there everyone, welcome back to the PA box. We're here just before the home game against Cray Wanderers. Our match sponsor today is 𝐈𝐍𝐄𝐑𝐕𝐈𝐄𝐖𝐒, and he's brought with him a couple of special guests, one of whom is Gavin Holligan, ex-professional footballer and I say turned singer-songwriter. You really were a singer-songwriter since you were a young kid, weren't you?
From the beginning.
Which comes to my first question. You picked two pretty ruthless things to do, two pretty ruthless occupations to have a go at, didn't you? Football and music.
Yeah.
How did you progress both when you were a kid, given the dedication they take?
Yeah, I'm really not sure how to answer that. I think, like anything, 10,000 hours working at your craft, and I guess I started really early on both, and found what I really loved doing quite early on, which gave me obviously a little bit of an advantage in terms of pursuing both careers. So yeah, just put in the hours.
Yeah, a lot of hours, I imagine. You had a chance, was it true, you had a chance at a music scholarship and chose football?
Of a fashion, I think more so, I was at a crossroads, and my dad quite rightly tried to encourage me to pursue football, knowing that there's a shelf life with football. Obviously you play till your mid-30s. With music you can continue on into later life, so I think the main focus was to get the football as a first kind of choice early on, and then move on to music once I'd hung up my boots, so to speak.
Yeah, and that football went reasonably well as a youngster, didn't it? You went semi-pro, and were fairly briskly scouted by West Ham, by the sound of it, and went there. How was that? It was probably in the 90s, wasn't it? How was that as a youngster, going so quickly into that environment? Yeah,
it was incredible. The progression was, as you said, incredibly quick. I signed for Kingstonians at the beginning of the 98 season, 98-99, and kind of impressed a lot of scouts at that time that were coming down to the games, seeing me score, come on, change the game, and eventually there was about 20 clubs looking at me, and West Ham put in a bid. I signed for West Ham. And that jump from non-league to professional football was enormous, really difficult transition for me. But that's how life goes. You find yourself in situations and you adjust, as best you can.
Yes, an absolute meritocracy football, isn't it? It's just down to your ability, your application. Just everything is black and white, isn't it?
Yeah, especially as a striker. I think if you're scoring goals and winning matches, you automatically impress, because I think that's what you're judged on. And when I was at Kingstonians, I was doing a lot of that, kind of coming on for the last 20 minutes, half an hour, 15 minutes, and really changing the game. And I think that's what kind of put me in the spotlight in a lot of clubs.
Yeah, and even though you didn't get a lot of game time at West Ham, you did get on at Anfield. If you're going to get on, then what a place to get on, isn't it?
100%.
How was that?
Incredible. I supported Liverpool as a boy, so coming on at Anfield and feeling the energy of 45,000 fans. We were 2-2. It was a 2-2 at the time I came on. I came on for Joe Cole. And actually nearly scored in the match. There's a kind of a moment where me and Trevor Sinclair are kind of squaring up to David James 1-on-1, 2-on-1, and unfortunately he didn't pass. He decided to shoot, and skied the ball over the bar. And then there was another chance that I nearly scored. David James got down low quickly. So it was an interesting, appearance, lots going on, and I think I did well enough to look back and go, well done. You've done
it. Who has? Let's face it.
What
a memory. You went to Wycombe with Laurie Sanchez. Got a lot more games there, so nice little club. Obviously, it always comes across as a well-organised club. Good club to be at.
100%. I have really fond memories of my time at Wycombe, playing with Laurie Sanchez. Met some great people, some great players. As you said, I ended up playing a lot more first team football and scored some goals, some important goals, some really good goals as well. So yeah, I enjoyed those years of my career as a footballer as well.
Yeah, and it doesn't take much to end it, does it? I think obviously sounds like you had an injury that really might have made your mind up as far as taking yourself out of the game was concerned.
Yeah, it wasn't one injury. I think it was kind of the sort of sum of the total, just loads of tears and strains and pulls. And they just kind of hampered my general fitness, my mobility and my morale and my confidence. And I just felt like to just go through the motions, kind of trying to come back from fitness and climb that mountain all the time, so to speak. It was just maybe a little bit too much for me, especially having a passion outside of football that I was also pursuing. So I thought, you know what, I've done it. You know, I've made my mark and I've pursued my dream and I've fulfilled that kind of lifelong ambition. Let me kind of move on to the other side of me and pursue that.
Yeah, and that's a great segue. How did you make that transition? Because it seems you went into becoming a session musician, that sort of thing. How does that happen?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, at the time, I was still surrounded by a lot of other creatives that were kind of emerging into the music industry, and you know, they all knew I played football as a career, so there was a fond, you know, good standing with a lot of people I'd come from the Brit school as well, so I knew a lot of people connected to the music industry anyway. So when I decided to quit football, they all knew that I'd kind of had a half a foot in the music anyway from before, and so that I was able to kind of capitalize on some of those relationships and find myself on certain stages with supporting, you know, various mainstream artists. So it was a fairly sort of seamless transition.
Yeah, I mean, you say that, but you still got to cut the mustard, so to speak. When you work, it's very similar to football, isn't it? I mean, you're out there, you've got to do your stuff, haven't you?
True, very true. Yeah, and I guess that's
similar mindset.
10,000 hours. Yeah, I often feel like in any, you know, especially now looking back, if you're gonna kind of master any craft or excel in any chosen vocation, I think the mindset is always going to be at the top of the priority list. Focus and discipline and consistency and self-belief and all of those buzzwords that we all throw around all the time. But I think it really is about how much you really pursue something with your, you know, your mind, your heart and your soul, and putting your best foot forward all the time. So I guess, when I showed up in environments or for employers, I always kind of brought my A game in any case.
Because that's obviously part of your personality, isn't it, by the looks of it?
Absolutely, I'm an A-type.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, fantastic. And you've always written songs, yes?
Always written songs, always composed music. So yeah, it's kind of been bubbling the surface from the beginning, I guess. Listening to great, you know, artists of the old. I grew up on Stevie Wonder, George Benson, Luther Vandross, Al Green, Bob Marley. So that kind of ilk of artistry I was always immersed in, you know, great writing, great lyrics, great melody, great arrangement. So yeah, that kind of always had us, you know, I kind of inspired by some of those type of attributes.
Yeah, and obviously you've worked with a lot of people over the years. You've now got an album out, which you obviously created yourself. It seems like you played most of the instruments on it.
Yeah.
You wrote most of it, some of it in collaboration. Again, you've moved through. Again, being a session musician is one thing, but you've got to get studio time. You've got to get the money. You've got to get the people to back you to do that.
Sure.
How does that happen?
Yeah. So I have this catchphrase which I always use, which is if you're not the weakest in the room, you're in the wrong room.
Yeah.
And I just made it my business to kind of continually be learning and growing and stretching myself, finding myself with people who have done what I'm doing or been through what I want to do, and trying to figure out how best to execute what my vision was, which is to ultimately be doing what I'm doing. And so, yeah, I actually didn't play all the instruments, but I'd find people who were masters at their craft and try to collaborate with them on what I saw as the finished product. So working with different musicians, different recording engineers, different mix engineers, and over the years kind of refining all my skill sets, whether that's kind of planning, whether that's communicating my vision, whether that's kind of mocking up the framework of the records, writing the songs, revisiting the songs, just going through whatever it took to kind of get to the point where I'm really happy. My other catchphrase is measure twice, cut once.
Yeah.
So I'd never rush anything. I'd always kind of check that I'm really, really happy with what's going down and what I'm hearing back. So between working with people who are masters at their craft and pushing myself to be improved, I kind of figured out the best way to kind of finish the product, and I'm really happy now, really.
Yeah. And where did you record it?
So again, depending on who I needed to record, what was being recorded, I picked different places to record. So there's about 7 or 8 studios that I'd kind of jump between, depending on how much space I needed, what instruments we were recording, where people were coming from. So yeah, I have my own studio, and then I have kind of access to a couple of other spots. And then if I'm really kind of going out there, I book like places like Snap Studios, which is like a boutique spot in North London. So many Hackney Studios in East London. Yeah. So, and then I kind of bring all the session files back to my place, compile them and work through them, edit, just fix it up.
And you've largely mixed and produced it yourself?
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah, I've always been producing. It's been a passion of mine from very early. Got an A star in music GCSE at school. So yeah, production has always kind of been a first love. And then mixing, I've learnt over the years doing different projects, how to kind of pull the sounds into a cohesive type of sound. So yeah, I've kind of mastered that craft adequately enough to do it myself.
So yeah, I have listened to the album, and it's really good, isn't it? It's got a lush sort of sound. It's not overproduced.
Yeah. It's
really good sound. I mean, I did also like Just Passing Through, which you say wasn't on the album.
Yeah.
But again, the songs have a great, almost had a Nat King Cole sort of feel to your voice. That one.
Sure.
I don't know whether that's a.
One of my biggest influences on my current sound has been an artist by the name of Gregory Porter.
Ah, yes, yeah.
And Gregory Porter has a lovely baritone, rich, deep baritone vocal, which doesn't really get celebrated or heard as much in popular music today.
My wife's quite a big fan of his. So.
Yeah, I mean, so many people I meet and they're like, oh, I love Gregory Porter. He's not as big as, your Bruno Mars or someone like that. So it's nice to get people passionate about real storytelling, quality singing, organic instrumentation, which is kind of where my my first love is, really. I can do that more modern kind of commercial top 40 stuff if I have to, production wise, but I feel like that organic, earthy, jazzy side of things is also quite nice to enjoy. So that's kind of coming through on the last single.
Yeah, and the name of the album is, for the people out there?
The name of the album is Sum of the Parts.
Yeah.
Excellent,
fantastic. Well, best of luck with that. Thank you so much for coming in to see us.
Oh, my pleasure.
Enjoy the game. I can see the players and that are starting to come out. The cones are out for the warm-up on the Cray Wanderers side anyway.
I miss them days.
Yeah, I'll bet. You're probably quite looking forward to watching this.
I am.
Quite interested.
Yeah, it's going to be like a flashback to old times.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, thank you so much, Gavin, for coming in. Brilliant to have a chat about football and music, two things that I wouldn't be here doing this job if it wasn't of interest to me. So we'll play a couple of your tunes, but in the meantime, get back with the crowd and enjoy the game this afternoon.
Thank you very
Thank you so much, mate.
Appreciate
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you. Brilliant.